The Iliad by Homer. Book 2 of 24. Now the other gods and the armed warriors on the plain slept soundly, but Zeus was wakeful, for he was thinking how to do honor to Achilles and destroy much people at the ships of the Achaeans. In the end he deemed it would be best to send a lying dream to King Agamemnon. So he called one to him and said to it, "Lying dream, go to the ships of the Achaeans, into the tent of King Agamemnon, and say to him word for word as I now bid you. Tell him to get the Achaeans instantly under arms, for he shall take Troy. There are no longer divided counsels among the gods. Hera has brought them to her own mind, and woe betides the Trojans." The dream went when it had heard its message, and soon reached the ships of the Achaeans. It sought out Agamemnon, son of Atreus, and found him in his tent, wrapped in a profound slumber. It hovered over his head in the likeness of Nestor, son of Neleus, whom Agamemnon honored above all his counselors, and said, "You are sleeping, son of Atreus. One who has the welfare of his host and so much other care upon his shoulders should dock his sleep. Hear me at once, for I come as a messenger from Zeus, who, though he be not near, yet takes thought of you and pities you. He bids you get the Achaeans instantly under arms, for you shall take Troy. There are no longer divided counsels among the gods. Hera has brought them over to her own mind, and woe betides the Trojans at the hands of Zeus. Remember this, and when you wake, see that it does not escape you." The dream then left him, and he thought of things that were surely not to be accomplished. He thought on that same day he was to take the city of Priam, but he little knew what was in the mind of Zeus, who had many other hard-fought fight in store alike for the Danaans and Trojans. Then presently he woke, with the divine message still ringing in his ears, so he sat upright, and put on his soft shirt, so fair and new, and over his heavy cloak. He bound his sandals onto his comely feet, and slung his silver-studded sword over his shoulders. Then he took the imperishable staff of his father, and sallied forth to the ships of the Achaeans. The goddess Dawn now wended her way to vast Olympus, that she might herald day to Zeus and to the other immortals, and Agamemnon sent the criers round to call the people in assembly. So they called them, and the people gathered thereon. But first he summoned a meeting of the elders at the ship of Nestor, king of Pylos. And when they were assembled, he laid a cunning counsel before them. "My friends," said he, "I have had a dream from heaven in the dead of night, and its face and figure resembled none but Nestor's. It hovered over my head and said, 'You are sleeping, son of Atreus. One who has the welfare of his host and so much other care upon his shoulders should dock his sleep. Hear me at once, for I am a messenger from Zeus, who, though he be not near, yet takes thought for you and pities you. He bids you get the Achaeans instantly under arms, for you shall take Troy. There are no longer divided counsels among the gods. Hera has brought them over to her own mind, and woe betides the Trojans at the hands of Zeus. Remember this." The dream then vanished, and I awoke. Let us now, therefore, arm the sons of the Achaeans, but it will be well that I should first sound them, and to this end I will tell them to fly with their ships. But do you others go about among the host and prevent their doing so." He then sat down, and Nestor, the king of Pylos, with all sincerity and goodwill addressed them thus. "My friends," said he, "princes and counselors of the Argives, if any other man of the Achaeans had told us of this dream, we should have declared it false, and would have had nothing to do with it. But he who has seen it is the foremost man among us. We must therefore set about getting the people under arms." With this he led the way from the assembly, and the other sceptred kings rose with him in obedience to the word of Agamemnon. But the people pressed forward to hear. They swarmed like bees that sally from some hollow cave, and flit in countless throng among the spring flowers, bunched in knots and clusters. Even so did the mighty multitude pour from ships and tents to the assembly, and ranged themselves upon the wide-watered shore, while among them ran Wildfire Rumor, messenger of Zeus, urging them ever to the fore. Thus they gathered in a pell-mell of mad confusion, and the earth groaned under the tramp of men as the people sought their places. 9 heralds went crying about among them to stay their tumult and bid them listen to the kings, till at last they were got into their several places and ceased their clamor. Then King Agamemnon rose, holding his scepter. This was the work of Hephaestus, who gave it to Zeus, the son of Cronos. Zeus gave it to Hermes, slayer of Argus, guide and guardian. King Hermes gave it to Pelops, the mighty charioteer, and Pelops to Atreus, shepherd of his people. Atreus, when he left it, to Thyestes, rich in flocks, and Thyestes in his turn left it to be borne by Agamemnon, that he might be lord of all Argos and of the isles. Leaning, then, on his scepter, he addressed the Argives. "My friends," he said, "heroes, servants of Ares, the hand of heaven has been laid heavily upon me. Cruel Zeus gave me his solemn promise that I should sack the city of Priam before returning. But he has played me false, and is now bidding me go ingloriously back to Argos with the loss of much people. Such is the will of Zeus, who has laid many a proud city in the dust, as he will yet lay others. For his power is above all. It will be a sorry tale hereafter that an Achaean host, at once so great and valiant, battled in vain against men fewer in number than themselves. But as yet the end is not in sight. Think that the Achaeans and Trojans have sworn to a solemn covenant, that they have each been numbered, the Trojans by the roll of their householders, and we by companies of 10. Think further that each of our companies desired to have a Trojan householder to pour out their wine. We are so greatly more in number that full many a company would have to go without its cupbearer. But they have in the town allies from other places, and it is these that hinder me from being able to sack the rich city of Ilium. 9 of Zeus's years are gone, the timbers of our ships have rotted, their tacking is no longer sound. Our wives and little ones at home look anxiously for our coming, but the work that we came hither to do has not been done. Now therefore, let us all do as I say. Let us sail back to our own land, for we shall not take Troy." With these words, he moved the hearts of the multitude, so many of them as knew not the cunning counsel of Agamemnon. They surged to and fro like the waves of the Icarian Sea, when the east and south winds break from the heavens clouds to lash them, or as when the west wind sweeps over a field of corn, and the ears bow beneath the blast. Even so were they swayed as they flew with loud cries toward the ships, and the dust from under their feet rose heavenward. They cheered each other on to draw the ships into the sea. They cleared the channels in front of them. They began taking away the stays from underneath them, and the welkin rang with their glad cries, so eager were they to return. Then surely the Argives would have returned after a fashion that was not fated, but Hera said to Athene, "Alas, daughter of aegis-bearing Zeus, unweariable, shall the Argives fly home to their own land over the broad sea, and leave Priam and the Trojans the glory of still keeping Helen? For whose sake so many of the Achaeans have died at Troy, far from their homes? Go about at once among the host, and speak fairly to them, man by man, that they draw not their ships into the sea." Athene was not slack to do her bidding. Down she darted from the topmost summits of Olympus, and in a moment she was at the ships of the Achaeans. There she found Odysseus, peer of Zeus in council, standing alone. He had not as yet laid a hand upon his ship, for he was grieved and sorry. So she went up close to him, and said, "Odysseus, noble son of Laertes, are you going to fling yourself into your ships and be off home to your own land in this way? Will you leave Priam and the Trojans the glory of still keeping Helen, for whose sake so many of the Achaeans have died at Troy far from their homes? Go about at once among the host, and speak fairly to them, man by man, that they draw not their ships into the sea." Odysseus, for his part, knew the voice as that of the goddess. He flung his cloak from him, and set off to run. His servant, Eurybates, a man of Ithaca, who waited on him, took charge of the cloak. Whereon Odysseus went straight up to Agamemnon and received from him his ancestral imperishable staff. With this he went about among the ships of the Achaeans. Whenever he met a king or chieftain, he stood by him and spoke to him fairly. "Sir," said he, "this flight is cowardly and unworthy. Stand to your post, and bid your people also keep their places. You do not yet know the full mind of Agamemnon. He was sounding us, and ere long will visit the Achaeans with his displeasure. We were not all of us at the council to hear what he then said. See to it lest he be angry, and do us a mischief, for the pride of kings is great, and the hand of Zeus is with him." But when he came across any common man who was making a noise, he struck him with this staff, and rebuked him, saying, "Sirrah, hold your peace, and listen to better men than yourself. You are a coward and no soldier. You are nobody, either in fight or council. We cannot all be kings. It is not well that there should be many masters. One man must be supreme, one king to whom the son of scheming Cronos has given the scepter of sovereignty over you all." Thus masterfully did he go out among the host, and the people hurried back to the council from their tents and ships with a sound as the thunder of surf when it comes crashing down upon the shore. And all the sea is in an uproar. The rest now took their seat, but Thersites still went on wagging his unbridled tongue, a man of many words, and those unseemly, a monger of sedition, a railer against all who were in authority, who cared not what he said, so that he might set the Achaeans in a laugh. He was the ugliest man of all that came before Troy, bandy-legged, lame on one foot, with his two shoulders rounded and hunched over his chest. His head ran up to a point, but there was little hair on top of it. Achilles and Odysseus hated him worst of all, for it was with them that he was most wont to wrangle. Now, however, with a shrill, squeaky voice, he began heaping his abuse upon Agamemnon the king. The Achaeans were angry and disgusted, yet none the less he kept on brawling, and bawling at the son of Atreus. "Agamemnon," he cried, "what ails you now, and what more do you want? Your tents are filled with bronze and with fair women, for whenever we take a town, we give you the pick of them. When you have yet more gold, which some Trojan is to give you as ransom for his son, when I or another Achaean has taken him prisoner? Or is it some young girl to hide and lie with? It is not well with you, the ruler of the Achaeans, should bring them into such misery. Weakling cowards, women rather than men, let us sail home, and leave this fellow here at Troy to stew in his own meeds of honor, and discover whether we were of any service to him or no. Achilles is a much better man than he is, and see how he has treated him, robbing him of his prize and keeping it himself. Achilles takes it meekly and shows no fight. If he did, son of Atreus, you would never again insult him." Thus railed Thersites, but Odysseus at once went up to him and rebuked him sternly. "Check your glib tongue, Thersites," he said, "and babble not a word further. Chide not with the princes when you have none to back you. There is no viler creature come before Troy with the son of Atreus. Drop this chatter about kings, and neither revile them nor keep harping about going home. We do not yet know how things are going to be, nor whether the Achaeans are to return with good success or evil. How dare you gibe at Agamemnon, because the Danaans have awarded him so many prizes? I tell you therefore, and it shall surely be, that if I again catch you talking such nonsense, I will either forfeit your own head and be no more called father of Telemachus, or I will take you, strip you stark naked, and whip you out of the assembly till you go blubbering back to the ships." On this, he beat him with his staff about the back and shoulders till he dropped and fell a-weeping. The golden scepter raised a bloody weal on his back, so he sat down frightened and in pain, looking foolish as he wiped the tears from his eyes. The people were sorry for him, yet they laughed heartily, and no one would turn to his neighbor, saying, "Odysseus has done many a good thing ere now in fights and council." But he never did the Argives a better turn than when he stopped his fellow's mouth from prating further. He will give the kings no more of this insolence. Thus said the people. Then Odysseus rose, scepter in hand, and Athene, in the likeness of a herald, bade the people be still, that those who were far off might hear him and consider his counsel. He therefore, with all sincerity and goodwill, addressed them thus: King Agamemnon, the Achaeans are for making you a byword among all mankind. They forget the promise they made you when they set out from Argos, that you should not return till you had sacked the town of Troy, and like children or widowed women, they murmur and would set off homeward. True it is that they have had toil enough to be disheartened. A man chafes at having to stay away from his wife even for a single month, when he is on shipboard at the mercy of wind and sea. But it is now 9 long years that we have been kept here. I cannot therefore blame the Achaeans if they turn restive. Still, we shall be shamed if we go home empty after so long a stay. Therefore, my friends, be patient yet a little longer, that we may learn whether the prophesyings of Calchas were false or true. All who have not since perished must remember, as though it were yesterday or the day before, how the ships of the Achaeans were detained in Aulis, when we were on our way hither to make war on Priam and the Trojans. We were ranged round about a fountain offering hecatombs to the gods upon their holy altars, and there was a fine plane tree from beneath, which there fell the stream of pure water. Then we saw a prodigy, for Zeus sent a fearful serpent out of the ground, with blood-red stains upon its back, and it darted from under the altar on the plane tree. Now there was a brood of young sparrows, quite small, upon the topmost bough, peeping out from under the leaves, 8 in all, and their mother that hatched them made 9. The serpent ate the poor cheeping things, while the old bird flew about lamenting her little ones. But the serpent threw his coils about her, and caught her by the wing as she was screaming. Then, when he had eaten both the sparrow and her young, the god who had sent him made him become a sign, for the son of scheming Cronos turned him into stone, and we stood there wondering at that which had come to pass. Then, that such a fearful portent had broken in upon our hecatombs, Calchas forthwith declared to us the oracles of heaven. Why, Achaeans, said he, are you thus speechless? Zeus has sent us this sign, long in coming, and long ere it be fulfilled, though its fame shall last forever. As the serpent ate the 8 fledglings, and the sparrow that hatched them, which makes 9, so shall we fight 9 years at Troy, but in the 10th shall take the town. This was what he said, and now it is all coming true. Stay here, therefore, all of you, till we take the city of Priam. On this, the Argives raised a shout, till the ships rang again with the uproar. Nestor, knight of Gerene, then addressed them. Shame on you, he cried, to stay talking here like children when you should fight like men. Where are our covenants now, and where the oaths that we have taken? Shall our counsels be flung into fire? With our drink offerings and the right hands of fellowship wherein we have put our trust? We waste our time in words, and for all our talking here shall be no further forward. Stand, therefore, son of Atreus, by your own steadfast purpose. Lead the Argives on to battle, and leave this handful of men to rot, who scheme and scheme in vain, to get back to Argos, ere they have learned whether Zeus be true or a liar. For the mighty son of Cronos surely promised we should succeed, when we Argives set sail to bring death and destruction upon the Trojans. He showed us favorable signs by flashing his lightning on our right hands. Therefore let none make haste to go till he has first lain with the wife of some Trojan, and avenged the toil and sorrow that he has suffered for the sake of Helen. Nevertheless, if any man is in such haste to be home again, let him lay his hand to his ship, that he may meet his doom in the sight of all. But, O king, consider and give ear to my counsel, for the word that I say may not be neglected lightly. Divide your men, Agamemnon, into their several tribes and clans, that clans and tribes may stand by and help one another. If you do this, and if the Achaeans obey you, you will find out who, both chiefs and people, are brave, and who are cowards, for they will vie against the other. Thus you shall also learn whether it is through the counsel of heaven or the cowardice of men that you shall fail to take the town. And Agamemnon answered, Nestor, you have again outdone the sons of the Achaeans in counsel. Would by Father Zeus, Athene, and Apollo that I had among them 10 more such counselors, for the city of King Priam would then fall beneath our hands, and we should sack it. But the son of Cronos afflicts me with bootless wranglings and strife. Achilles and I are quarreling about this girl, in which matter I was first to be offended. If we can be of one mind again, the Trojans will not stave off destruction for a day. Now therefore get your morning meal, that our hosts join in fight. Whet well your spears. See well to the ordering of your shields. Give good feeds to your horses, and look your chariots carefully over, that we may do battle the livelong day. For we shall have no rest, not for a moment, till night falls to part us. The bands that bear your shields shall be wet with your sweat upon your shoulders. Your hands shall weary upon your spears. Your horses shall steam in front of your chariots. And if I see any man shirking the fight, or trying to keep out of it at the ships, there shall be no help for him. But he shall be prey to dogs and vultures. Thus he spoke, and the Achaeans roared applause, as when the waves run high before the blast of the south wind, and break on some lofty headland, dashing against it and buffeting it without ceasing, as the storms from every quarter drive them. Even so did the Achaeans rise and hurry in all directions to their ships. There they lighted their fires at their tents and got dinner, offering sacrifice, every man to one or other of the gods, and praying each one of them that he might live to come out of the fight. Agamemnon, king of men, sacrificed a fat 5-year-old bull to the mighty son of Cronos, and invited the princes and elders of his host. First he asked Nestor and King Idomeneus, then the 2 Ajaxes, and the son of Tydeus, and sixthly Odysseus, peer of gods in council. But Menelaus came of his own accord, for he knew how busy his brother then was. They stood round the bull, with their barley meal in their hands, and Agamemnon prayed, saying, Zeus, most glorious supreme, that dwellest in heaven, and ridest upon the storm cloud, grant that the sun may not go down, nor the night fall, till the palace of Priam is laid low, and its gates are consumed with fire. Grant that my sword may pierce the shirt of Hector about his heart, and that full many of his comrades may bite the dust as they fall dying around him. Thus he prayed, but the son of Cronos would not fulfill his prayer. He accepted the sacrifice, yet none the less increased their toil continually. When they had done praying and sprinkling the barley meal upon the victim, they drew back its head, killed it, and then flayed it. They cut out the thigh bones, wrapped them round in 2 layers of fat, and set pieces of raw meat on top of them. These they burned upon the split logs of firewood, but they spitted the inward meats, and held them in the flames to cook. When the thigh bones were burned, and they had tasted the inward meats, they cut the rest up small, put the pieces upon spits, roasted them till they were done, and drew them off. Then, when they had finished their work, and the feast was ready, they ate it, and every man had his full share, so that they were all satisfied. As soon as they had had enough to eat and drink, Nestor, knight of Gerene, began to speak. King Agamemnon, said he, let us not stay talking here, nor be slack in the work that heaven has put into our hands. Let the heralds summon the people to gather at their several ships. We will then go about among the host, that we may begin fighting at once. Thus did he speak, and Agamemnon heeded his words. He at once set the criers round to the people in the assembly, so they called them, and the people gathered thereon. The chiefs about the son of Atreus chose their men and marshalled them, while Athene went among them, holding her priceless aegis that knows neither age nor death. From it there waved 100 tassels of pure gold, all deftly woven, and each of them worth 100 oxen. With this she darted furiously everywhere among the hosts of the Achaeans, urging them forward, and putting courage into the heart of each, so that he might fight and do battle without ceasing. Thus war became sweeter in their eyes, even than returning home in their ships, as when some great forest fire is raging upon a mountain top, and its light is seen afar. Even so as they marched, the gleam of their armor flashed into the firmament of heaven. They were like great flocks of geese, or cranes, or swans on the plain about the waters of Caster, that wing their way hither and whither, glorying in the pride of flight, and crying as they settle till the fen is alive with their screaming. Even thus did their tribes pour from ships and tents onto the plain of Scamander. and the ground rang as brass under the feet of men and horses. They stood as thick upon the flower-bespangled fields as leaves that bloom in summer, as countless swarms of flies buzz around a herdsman's homestead in the time of spring when the pails are drenched with milk. Even so did the Achaeans swarm onto the plain to charge the Trojans and destroy them. The chiefs disposed their men this way, and that before the fight began, drafting them out as easily as goatherds draft their flocks when they got mixed while feeding. And among them went King Agamemnon, with a head and face like Zeus the Lord of Thunder, a waist like Ares, and a chest like that of Poseidon, as some great bull that lords it over the herds upon the plain. Even so did Zeus make the son of Atreus stand peerless among the multitude of heroes. Thus marched the host, like a consuming fire, and the earth groaned beneath them, when the Lord of Thunder is angry, and the land about Typhoeus, among the Arimi, where they say Typhoeus lives. Even so did the earth groan beneath them, as they sped over the plain. And now Iris, fleet as the wind, was sent by Zeus to tell the bad news among the Trojans. They were gathered in assembly, old and young, at Priam's gates, and Iris came close up to Priam, for the Trojan, on the tomb of old Aeetes, to look out for any sally of the Achaeans. In his likeness Iris spoke, saying, "Old man, you talk idly, as in time of peace, while war is at hand. I have been in many a battle, but never yet saw such a host as is now advancing. They are crossing the plain to attack the city as thick as leaves, or as sands of the sea. Hector, I charge you above all others, do as I say. There are many allies dispersed about the city of Priam, from distant places and speaking diverse tongues. Therefore, let each chief give orders to his own people, setting them severally in array and leading them forth to battle." Thus he spoke, but Hector knew that it was the goddess, and at once broke up the assembly. The men flew to arms, all the gates were opened, and the people thronged through them, horse and foot, with the tramp as of a great multitude. Now there is a high mound before the city, rising by itself upon the plain. Men call it Bataea, but the gods know that it is the tomb of lithe Myrine. Here the Trojans and their allies divided their forces. Priam's son, great Hector of the gleaming helmet, commanded the Trojans, and with him were arrayed by far the greater number and most valiant of those who were longing for the fray. Thank you for tuning in once again to our reading of the Iliad by Homer, here on Spine-Bending Reviews. If you like this content, this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to see this channel grow and include even more content, please share this video with friends and family. Thank you.